All Spyro 1 footage from the Reignited Trilogy, besides promotional footage, belongs to Crystal Fisher. A link to his channel is provided in the description. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. I have a lot of games that I enjoy. My favorite series include The Legend of Zelda, Persona, Pokemon, Mario, and one that has been dear to my heart since I was literally 3 years old. Spyro. My very first video game. Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage is actually still one of my favorite games of all time, and when I saw that the original Spyro trilogy was going to be remade, I knew I had to check it out. The Spyro Reignited Trilogy is available on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. This trilogy contains remakes of the original Spyro games for the PlayStation 1, originally developed by Insomniac Games. These remakes were developed by Toys for Bob, who made such masterpieces like Madagascar for PlayStation 2 and Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. Just kidding. They actually developed the whole Skylanders series, as well as the Crash Bandicoot remakes that were released last year. The Insane Trilogy was great, so many had high expectations for the Spyro remakes. The Reignited Trilogy was released on the 13th of November, and fans on the internet have been raving about it ever since. Though I agree that many people actually like the game and have positive things to say, because I do too, I also believe that some of these people are blinded by nostalgia. Listen, I thought Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex was like a masterpiece when I was a kid. These remakes are enjoyable, but they definitely have flaws. Let's start with what was done well, because my views are really mixed and I have a lot to say. First of all, the games of the Reignited Trilogy have identical layouts to their PlayStation 1 counterparts. This is great because I enjoyed the level and world designs of the originals. If they changed too much, I definitely would have been cranky about it. Visually, these games are major upgrades too. The models and textures look great and look exactly like one who has played the original trilogy would expect them to. The remakes still capture that cartoony look, while also adding more particles and details to the environment. It's a perfect balance and does not look too out of place for the Spyro universe. Overall, the levels and worlds look great and most changes were done for the better. Speaking of fitting in, the new character designs work really well too. Believe it or not, I was originally saddened by some of the character changes. However, as I played through the games, I realized they fit well into their environments and continued to give off the same vibes as the characters in the originals did. The character I think that got the greatest upgrade is Bianca. In the original Spyro 3, her eyes were rather scary and her animations felt stiff, similar to most of the character animations in the originals.
Hello, Spyro. My brother Handel and I have been sent here to blow—
Is that a tongue or is that a lip? In Reignited, however, she looks like a beautifully designed character. The movements of all the characters were filled with so much life. This makes the characters more visually likable. As for the gameplay, it's about the same as it was, and I have nothing to complain about how the controls were. The controls are tight and easy, nothing feels slippery or frustrating. Flaming and bashing into objects is always fun and feels great to do. Sometimes I felt the range of the flame was increased. I have no idea if that's correct though, but I feel that way anyways. Gliding from platform to platform, especially long distance, is honestly one of the most fun parts of the Spyro games. Since Spyro is a dragon with several abilities, the developers use that to their advantage when designing levels. I really appreciate this, and it's why Spyro stands out amongst other 3D platformers. Additionally, the pivot charge you can do makes turning around a lot more satisfying and quick. Though I'm glad the controls remained the same, I do have some things to complain about. I'll get to that later. One of the most memorable aspects of Spyro is its soundtrack. I cannot tell you how much I love the music of this game. In the Reignited Trilogy, not only can you listen to the new remade versions of each song, but you can also listen to the original tracks. This is really helpful, especially since I personally prefer the original soundtrack. However, the new remix versions sound great too, and are faithful to the originals. Each song fits perfectly into the level. The tracks are so whimsical. They flow beautifully through these enchanted levels, yet never distract you from the game. The original soundtracks were composed by Stuart Copeland, the former drummer of The Police. Copeland was also the consultant for Toys for Bob when the tracks were being remixed, so I knew these tracks were going to be great right from the start. Though I may have doted on these games too much, I actually do in fact have some criticisms to make. First of all, there are technical issues. At random times, this game has bursts of frame rate drops. This happens frequently when I would load a level, and sometimes during actual levels. Not only that, but there are occasional glitches. These can mostly be found in the second and third games. Although these games do not make the game unplayable, they really make the game feel unfinished and can bring the player out of the experience. As for complaints about the controls I mentioned earlier, I found jumping while using the supercharge power-up difficult. It was more frustrating to estimate when to jump than it should have been, especially since this was not an issue in the original games. This problem is really irritating for levels that depend on supercharging, such as Lofty Castle and Treetops. Despite praising how the game looks earlier, I can't help but nitpick a little. Some levels in the remakes look like they have lost a bit of charm. It seems colors were removed, or just look desaturated altogether. Look at this level, Icy Peak, from the original compared to the remake. The originals look way more colorful and enchanting. Unfortunately, the remakes disappoint in this aspect. Not only do some environments have worse color choices than the originals, but the remakes sometimes struggle with contrast. The original point of Spyro being purple is that he could stand out amongst his environment. In the remakes, Spyro occasionally feels like he blends into the level. This is most apparent in water sections and levels. Also, other areas look too bright or too dark at times. Another nitpick I have is that gems are either way too small or the grass is way too long. Seriously, thank God for the gem finder mechanic, otherwise I would have never been able to collect all the gems in each level. I often found myself abusing the gem finder. When I finally came across the last gem I needed, it was usually hidden in a grass patch along a path I had already come across. Though I'm really thankful the remakes are so identical to the original games, there's just one thing I wish they would have removed. This would be the Alchemist Mission in Spyro 2. In this mission, you have to guide an alchemist to Hunter the cheetah, who got stuck in stone. This mission is literally the worst side mission in all of Spyro. First of all, the alchemist starts a few yards next to where Hunter actually is. But since he has bad eyesight, he walks in random directions, directly into the path of enemies, and usually passes the enemies a few more times. He'll fake you out on where he's gonna walk, too. So you have to stop yourself from being killed and prevent the alchemist from being killed too. It's a long process of trial and error that is not fun at all.
The game is fun. If it's not fun, why bother?
Challenging things can be fun and a little frustrating, that's okay. This mission though is on a whole different level of agitation. It's really irritating and would have better off not in the game at all. For the sake of identicalness, I can excuse it though. The last things I have to criticize are the menus and the startup screens. The menus are the same throughout all three games. They look fine and are set up well, but are a little disappointing. In the original Spyro 2, the menu was set up to look like a book. You could turn the pages and look at your progress. This is completely missing in the Reignited Trilogy. It is the same for the main menus of each game. The main menus in the originals were animated and delightful to see every time you'd boot up the games. In Reignited, the main menus are just PNG files. It's a little sad. Even after nitpicking and pulling these games apart, I still can't help but recommend them. The Spyro Reignited Trilogy is a great platformer series that should be recognized, shared, and supported. It's fresh and original. The gameplay is exciting and the game always throws new missions at you to spice things up. Even though there are obvious flaws and subtle changes, a first-time player may not know and have fun with the game regardless. For 3 great games in one, it's worth your $40. If possible, I still recommend playing the original games, despite them being 20 years old. They still hold up, and it's fun to compare them to their modern remakes. If you want even more 3D platformers, similar games I can recommend include Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Galaxy, Pac-Man World 2, and Ratchet & Clank. I'm really glad that Toys for Bob was given the chance to remake these fantastic games. Hopefully, if they ever get the chance to make a new Spyro game, they can learn from the mistakes in the trilogy and amplify the greatest parts of the Spyro series. Personally, I trust them with making a new game. If I absolutely had to rate the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, I would definitely give it at least a 7.5 out of 10. The games are excellent, yet have a few flaws that should have been fixed, but the game remains playable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.